joining us, then welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. If you are wanting to know more about the art of negotiation, collaboration, leadership, critical thinking, then the show is for you, because our author today has published 7 books on this topic. Don't go away. We'll be right back. And if you've just joined us, welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Bridgetti Lambanda from Cape Town, all the way in South Africa. In today's show, we're going to be talking to David Savage. If this is your first time watching the Writers' Corner live show, we've been around for almost 4 years next month. And our stream is brought to you by Creative Edge, Be Live Media, and StreamYard. Our amazing author for today is David Savage, all about collaboration, negotiation, conflict resolution. So don't go away. He'll be joining us shortly. But before we get the show started with our amazing guest for today, one of the things that we're very passionate about is helping you level up on your live appearance when you are talking about your books. I think hybrid is still the way forward. We're not ready to throw in the towel on anything that's got to do with online communication just yet. So if you are an author out there, you're probably still using this, and we like to give some tips and tricks about how you can show up in a great manner online when you're talking about your books. One of the things that you do want to do is to make sure that you've got a camera that you can use to show off your books in a great way. Very often the cameras on laptops aren't the best unless you've got one of the newer technology ones, but the cameras on the mobile phones are fantastic. But just one tip: if you're wanting to talk about your book and show off your book and yourself on screen at the same time, do turn your phone into landscape, which is that way. If you hold your phone up into portrait mode, then you get those terrible black lines on the side, and you want to avoid that because it's not the best way to showcase yourself or your books when you are talking about your books. One of the other things that you can use is one of the things that we recommend is that if you are using your phone to showcase your books, you want to stabilize it. And now there's all kinds of tripods and things that you can use. You could use something like the DJI Osmo if you're wanting to walk around and just give people a sort of a back view of what you're doing with your writing, and you want to show your books, or something like one of these. Any kind of tripod, but you do want to stabilize your phone if you're using it. Phones have got great cameras, but they do need to be stabilized, or they make people feel seasick just a little bit. The other thing that we recommend on the show is that you invest in a great microphone so people can hear you clearly, because people may forgive a bad image, but they will tune out if they can't hear you. So do invest in something like the lavalier microphone, which is just a clip-on. They're pretty inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon. Invest in something so people can hear you well. I've got the Samsung, which is a great big microphone, but you don't need something as fancy. It's got a great construction, but again, not everybody wants to or needs to have a big microphone, but those are just some of the options that you may want to consider. And now I want to introduce my amazing co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She is an award-winning author and also a special needs and disabilities advocate. She's also a ghostwriter, and her latest release is called Cheers from Heaven with Thornton Pines. You may want to check that out over on Amazon as well. So without any further ado, Mary, welcome to the show. So great to see you again. Always delightful to have you.
Yeah, it's always delightful to be here, and we have so much fun. And I look like I'm in like maybe a hotel room in Chicago or New York today. So it's super fun, right? But hi, Lillian. It's so nice to see you today. We love our fans and our guests, and we love for people to watch live. It's super fun, and we're excited today about our author because the subject we're talking about is quite important, and it seems to be like more and more and more what people are doing, right? Collaboration.
Yep, absolutely. I think, collaboration is the way forward. I think, and I'm going to ask David about, I'm going to ask him about that. But I think post-COVID, we've changed the way we look at things and do business, and collaboration is definitely the way forward. And I think a lot more people are open to collaboration. Well, that's what I think. I'm going to ask him. He's the expert on the topic.
Right.
So for anyone out there who's not met David and doesn't know about his book or his work, David uses visioning, energy, and organizational development to help leaders like yourselves turn complex challenges into opportunities. I like that. He also teaches leaders the art of negotiation, collaboration, leadership, and critical thinking. He's published 7 books that cover those topics, as well as dispute resolution. And so with that, I think let's just invite our amazing guest to join us, shall we?
Hi, David.
Good day, everyone.
David, welcome to the show. So glad that you could join us today, and we're really, really looking forward to this conversation with you. Thank you for making the time. Much appreciated. I'm going to start right at the gate and just ask you just to open up the conversation. If you could tell us just a little bit about yourself, what gets you out of bed and keeps you going?
Every day for probably the last 5 decades, I have just woken up most every day with a desire and a passion to help people work together better. I realize that as I age and as I grow my expertise and experience, I really don't know much. So through collaborative learning, through outreach with your listeners, your viewers, the two of you, I can learn so much. I think that's what gets me empowered, passionate, is to say, nobody gets to be right, but what can we learn together?
Oh my goodness, I love that saying. That is such a beautiful saying. And, I think Mary and I both, we've met so many amazing people through this space. It's been amazing. It's been a phenomenal journey over the last 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a fun collaboration. You just never know when you collaborate with folks what's going to come from it. And I always say 2 minds are better than one because usually you can solve a problem easier that way. And you probably agree with us based on what you write about. So your book is about collaboration and leadership. So how does one typically create, how do we create a really positive, successful collaborative workspace with someone else? And I think there's some ingredients there, isn't there, that to make it good?
Yeah. Well, most often collaboration is not done well. Most often it's manipulation under the guise of collaboration. And I've in my 7 books in the Breakthrough to Yes, Unlocking the Possible Within a Culture of Collaboration, I outline 10 essential steps. And come together is not until actually step 5. A lot of leaders, organizations, they call a meeting and say, well, we've collaborated. Well, no, you haven't. There is an important part of design and assessment. So in my books, including my latest one, Better by Design, I outline assessments and processes and tools and awareness measurements to say, how collaborative are we really? What can we as a team do better together?
That is very, very important. Very, very important. You've touched on some very, very special and they're key things that have to work. And that's interesting what he just said, isn't it, Brigetti? That some of the collaborations happen under the guise of control by someone else.
Yeah.
And wow, that it's. I mean, I know it happens. It's very sad. But I think for collaboration to be successful, you also have to have a safe space to feel safe. To be able to speak your thoughts and feelings, and then have them received in a very a non-combative and cooperative and constructive criticism.
Yeah, if I can jump in here, Mary Elizabeth, I think that psychological safety within an organization is something I've been focusing on more and more recently, to say, how safe do I feel in challenging the leader? How safe do I feel in my position, in my future, in my assessment, in my bonuses, or even in my family, when I get to talk back and say, I don't think so. Here's my perspective. And without that safety, it just doesn't happen. We have a whole bunch of yes people. We have a whole bunch of people that are ducklings following mother or father goose. And if I might take an example from where I live in Cranbrook, British Columbia, Canada, a couple of nights ago, my partner and I were up at the Peace Park close to our home, and all those ducklings were being devoured by an otter, the baby ducklings being devoured by an otter. And I use that as a harsh metaphor, but to really, we can't go into collaboration, into leadership, into families, into communities, thinking that everything's going to be fine. We just have to think positive thoughts. Increasingly, there are otters out there in this very complex world, this threatening, ever-changing, increasing, rapidly changing world, whether it's for organizations, families, communities. And when we actually can see the otter, sometimes we don't see the otter if you're somebody in my demographic, sometimes a handicapped person, sometimes a person that's 18 years old can see things that I missed completely. It's just not within my range of sight. So through diversity, through awareness, through collaborative leadership, if those ducklings are all swimming along, looking in the same direction, and nobody's looking out around, failure can happen so quickly and devastatingly. The converse, because I like to be positive, is when you have that diversity, when you design the collaboration, when you create the assessments and the measurements and the accountability, you also have the opportunity to go far greater than you ever expected. And in my books, I have many examples of where I didn't get to be right, but because I stood in the conflict, because I stood in the blasts of others and listened and listened and listened and thought again and thought again and listened some more, all of a sudden, at some point, there's a breakthrough to yes. There's a breakthrough that's much more profound than any of us would have dreamed. At least that's my experience. So collaboration, like sustainability, has become a really badly used term. Nobody actually knows what they're saying. It's like a tag. Well, I collaborate, therefore I'm good. No, you're not. You're
Very
good
interesting.
you're based on the results that you achieve, and the results you achieve can be far grander when you have the purposeful culture within your organization.
Yeah. David, can you give us some examples of what a roadblock to collaboration look like, or what a bad collaboration is, so that we can identify, have a means of identifying them? Like, what does a bad collaboration look like?
When we already have the goal in mind, when we say, well, I this is what I want to achieve, and therefore here's what I'm going to design to achieve that, I'd say that's often a road to failure. if we actually say, what's my purpose? I would like to have an organization that attracts great workers, attracts great minds, and has breakthrough thinking. Well, we start with, well, who is in that organization? What are the skills necessary? Who are the outliers? Who are the people that are really critical that I can trust to stand up to me? So designing that process, designing what it looks like, for example, so many meetings and organizations are around rectangular tables. Well, that's not the place to collaborate. Collaborative is much more of a circle. And oftentimes, if you're looking for creativity, get outside. Get outside. It just opens our hearts, opens our brains. Mary Elizabeth, you said 2 minds are better than one. I'd say 10 hearts are better than 2 minds.
Oh my gosh, I agree with you 100%. And creativity plays such a huge role for me personally and in business. I think it just, there's so many different ways to do things. And as authors, we know, right, how creative we've had to get because we can't do the regular stuff we've been doing in the past. So we've had to learn to collaborate and get creative. And, I imagine that working, with business leaders on turnaround strategies, I know that's got to be very interesting. And can you just, sort of talk to us about how, what all that entails and, how long does it take to implement? What does that look like? Because I know that's probably very interesting work.
Great question. And I'm still learning.
Well, aren't we always learning? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, critical thinking is important in these polarized times, these black and white judgments fast to be first in the headlines. For much of my career in oil and gas and renewable energy, healthcare, tourism, and then corporate coaching, I've loved the term, the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it takes time before you can go fast. You really need to go slow before you can go fast. Well, I've just reread and been part of a book club on Adam Grant's Think Again, and another wonderful book about reconsidering everything that we're positive that we know. So where does this take me? Is there is no end. There is no end. So if I say for the last decades, you have to go slow before you can go fast. You have to build the culture, the team, the process, the visioning, etc. Now, increasingly, I'm realizing that's true, and that possible, and we're always going slow. We're always looking for continuous improvement. We're always looking for what did we learn from that. Increasingly, authors, speakers, coaches are talking about the importance of and the value of failure. Well, let's continue to learn not only from our successes, but our failures. So in some ways, this is not an easy thing. This is, if you want easy and fast, be the command and control, be, whatever it takes to get to you short term. But if you want to attract the best clients, the best purchasers, the best staff, and the best leaders for the future generation, you got to do this. You got to collaborate well and on purpose and serve the greater good. And by serving the greater good, business with purpose, you will be far more successful. And the people, to come back to one of your earlier questions, the people that work for you will get out of bed in the morning saying, yeah, I get to work there.
So it sounds more like you're talking about collaboration by design. That a good collaboration doesn't happen by accident. You have to design it, you have to work for it, and then make it work.
Yeah. So if I might, my most recent book, Better by Design, How to Produce Better Outcomes Through Well-Designed Collaboration.
Can you hold it up? I want to have a look at that cover again.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Yeah, nice.
And one of the things I really want to focus on here is, here's a checklist. within Better by Design. And part of this was developed in my earlier Breakthrough to Yes, Unlocking the Possible Within a Culture of Collaboration. But a checklist, key questions before you complete your design. Why are you really doing this? So this is a Likert scale. If you want to do the detailed one, that's on my website, davidbsavage.com. But questions in your design. Why are you really doing this? Why would others choose to join us? What will the rules of engagement be? What about confidentiality? What are the metrics and measurables you seek to create? And what are the styles of the participants and how do you ensure they're all included? So that's that diversity piece, the accountability piece. I'll just flip through. There's a total of 31 questions that you can do an assessment and on purpose with profound results. What roles do we ask people to play? In other words, is there a constructive critic? Is there an artist? Is there somebody that really brings in the technology, brings in the engineering, someone that brings in the accounting? What will there be times when the group needs to shrink or expand? So, this is a team sport. It's not something where you have the same team and you stick with it. You plug and play based on where you want to go, and you use all the resources on purpose. So those are just a number of the assessment tools that I offer online and in my books to say, okay, Savage, help me design my collaboration. Well, here you go. Here's 31 questions, and you can rank yourself and your leadership team and your team on a Likert scale to say, well, how collaborative are we? And oftentimes what I find is organizations are shocked when they realize that they're not very collaborative. They really don't have the culture that they like to exhibit. And then they wonder why people are not loyal, people fail to speak up, people don't see an opportunity to grow and advance. I guess the last thing I'll say with respect to that piece is money is not the thing. Money is useful, but the reason people get out of bed and say, yay, I get to work there, is because they're a real part of it. They're valued, they're heard, they're listened to. And while they're not coddled, this isn't a flimsy, superficial thing. They are valued, they are seen, and they have roles that are clearly defined and accounted for.
We'd have much better, if people felt that way more in their jobs, then there'd be a whole lot more healthy folks mentally and emotionally in the world, wouldn't there? And I think every company needs to have your checklist. Any organization that's going to collaborate, even to, like when you were talking about those moving parts, I was thinking about theatrical productions and how many moving parts there are, but everyone is very important in order to bring the whole production out and show for people to then enjoy. So, I think your questions are vital to the key of success.
Yeah, in the last year, there's been so much talk and worry and gnashing about the Great Resignation. Why do organizations have so much trouble filling the staffing roles that they have? Well, I think through the pandemic, not only are we much more disconnected, but we're much more connected. So the three of us can speak from Cape Town, from Nashville, from Cranbrook, and we can collaborate right in this moment as we're doing, helping others. That's nothing like the workspace that people expected, even 5 years ago. So instead of thinking and gnashing about the Great Resignation, I call it the Great Opportunity, because those organizations that get it and want to continually improve and attract and be on purpose to serve the environment, serve our communities, and therefore be attractive to the best and the brightest and the youngest and the futurists. Bottom line is they make more money too. It's not about, well, shall we give people an extra 7% raise because inflation is high? It's, why would I want to be there?
Absolutely, that sounds great. Dave, can I ask you, would you read us a section out of your book that you think would be useful to our viewers?
Thank you,
Ooh,
Brigitte.
that list was very useful. I want a copy of the list, right, Brigetti, don't you?
I
I know
would
that
actually,
list is amazing.
I would be happy to, after the show, I'll send you a link to where you can find it. And there's a free version for everybody, and then there's a 360 assessment. Brigetti, the first thing that comes to mind, actually two things, if I might, is I'd like to talk about two parts of my first book, Unlocking the Possible Within a Culture of Collaboration. I'd like to start with the dedication that I wrote. I dedicate this book and
Sure.
my work to our grandmothers and grandfathers, to our granddaughters and grandsons, to all who believe leading for we is greater than leading for me, and to you, the reader, who is part of this paradigm shift from top down to collaborative leadership, to the 100+ people around the world in 8 countries that have provided me their wisdom for this book, and to my 45 guests around the world for my podcasts, to my family and especially my grandchildren, and to our shared future. You teach me, and with collaboration, we create our great future working together better. And if I move on to Together a Forest, which is the preface of my first book, uh, Mary Elizabeth and Brigetti, we were talking before we started about the importance of art and artistry. And when I was writing my first book, I was talking to editors and publishers, and I wanted to lead off with a natural collaboration, a story of collaboration, threat, and success from a natural experience near my cabin at Rosen Lake in the Kootenay Rockies of Canada. And they said, "No, don't do that, Savage. This is a business book. This is a nonfiction leadership thing. So our readers really aren't interested in that nature, environmental stuff. Too bad." And I just kept saying no to them because my boundaries and my hopes and my vision are pretty clear. So I wrote Together a Forest, and I won't read that here, but again, I would be happy to send that to you. And it's this very real story of near this pristine, beautiful lake. People came in and loved the lake, loved looking at the Rocky Mountains, and loved the atmosphere. And the first thing we do is we want to start cutting it down because we want to build a place. And then, well, we need to build a parking lot, and then we need to build a shed. And what was happening to this family, real time, was every time they took out trees and ripped up the roots in the ecosystem and the ground underground, they really weakened what they loved the most. And windstorms would come, and all of a sudden, trees were blowing down, like 120-year-old tamaracks, larch pine, spruce. They would blow down, and every time they blow down, the bulldozer would come back in and clean it up. And pretty soon, that pristine natural environment beside a beautiful lake full of painted turtles, grizzly bears and cougars visit often. All of a sudden, they turned this lot into basically a gravel pit and placed their cabin on top of it. And to me, that is not what we need to do with our world, our planet, our ecosystem. And so Together our forest was how the threatening of the short-sighted residents, builders, and the bulldozers and the construction destroyed actually what they loved the most. And the trees just can't support each other. The root systems, the fungi can't be there when you just keep blading away every time you destroy a little more. So it's Together a Forest, the preamble. Oftentimes, while so many editors and publishers said, "David, that's just not going to work," oftentimes my readers like that the most because that gets their heart open. They recognize that, they see that in their own communities and their own lives. and say, yeah, that's a wonderful metaphor. So what seemed to be radical and ridiculous just years ago, that's the thing that people comment the most on.
Wow. It's very relatable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And being heart-centered about what you do and how you do it. Because if you come from that place, then people are more open to working with you and collaborating with you and making your plans work.
Yeah, collaboration at the speed of trust.
That needs to be a t-shirt. A t-shirt. David, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours. You're very soothing to listen to, and so wise. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and insight with us today. We're very grateful, and I can't wait to read more of what you're doing. So,
thank you so much. This has been an honor, and I'm constantly learning because I'm not right.
we're all constantly learning.
For sure. We're definitely all constantly learning. David, that was amazing, as Mary just said. Now, thank you very, very much for spending some time with us, and we'd love to have you back in the future again.
Thank you.
Huge big shout out to everyone who's joined us today, and a big shout out to Lillian, especially. And Lillian agrees with you, Mary. She says that should definitely be out on a t-shirt. Thanks, everyone. Take care. We'll see you back next week, same time, on another episode of the Writers' Corner live show.